YouTube comments from a video titled, "Why Medieval Bread Was a Superfood While Your Modern Bread Makes You Sick." Part 6.
At Kevin Webster 7868 wrote,
Medieval bread was not a superfood, and modern bread doesn't make you sick. If they had these mythical superfoods, back in the day, they would have lived far longer than we do today, and they would have suffered from less diseases than we do today. Stop romanticizing ages of ignorance like the paleo freaks.
The Hedgesid wrote,
Lies. Is not that big of a difference. Maybe if they mix good plants, herbs, and bark, whatever meat came their way. But bread was bad and still is. In high doses. Their teeth and bones were weaker compared to previous times. They used to live in cities with shitty immune systems that ended up wiping towns and cities completely. Super bad nutrition, specialty because humans were horrible and starved each other on purpose during war or other dumb reasons.
A Graftakwif wrote,
If anything on the ingredient list on the packaging requires you to have a chemical engineering degree, just don't. If it has anything you don't know, just don't. Stick to natural ingredients and you'll be way better off.
The Herondotes wrote,
If the video is about American bread, that should be mentioned. Where I live, these ingredients are not usually found in bread, unless it is imported. I also think it's important to mention that bread back then could easily kill you due to ergot infections. Additives. The bread in my country, the most countries on earth, also has exactly 3 basic ingredients. America is such a tiny blip on this globe. Don't always compare every country on earth to your dehydrate piece of land.
The Habitars wrote,
Please, don't judge other countries. The Northern European countries still do a very healthy bread. En otros handworth bread types, almost 300 sitios de ronte con batate y el. Of course you can buy cheap bread, but you don't need to. Everyone buying bread from a huge industry supermarkets are the culprits, and it is themselves driven by greed of the cheapest food they can get. You can bake your own bread like Germans do at home, reducing costs and choosing healthier products.
A Philhart 2990 wrote,
Modern bread was the key killer for me. I finally realized in my late 30s it was putting me to sleep after lunch. Brain fog, and God only knows what else. I just replaced it with more complex carbs, and no longer was I falling asleep 1 hour after lunch. Oh dear.
At Oramorituri wrote,
You know, from ancient remains, the old people were eating a good chunk of rock every year from the millstones. Maybe some extra minerals, but caused excess wear on the teeth.
At Ididuda Kemename wrote,
Well, if you plowing the fields, the amount of exercise you get will naturally prevent insulin resistance. Also, you can't entirely say no one had inflammatory bowels. Probably were cases back then too, just no one knew about it or believed its cause was something else.
At Lucid Living YT wrote,
Man, making bread yourself is so satisfying. Healthy and tastes great. Simple, cheap, nutritious. Find a no-need recipe if you CBA to do work. Other than that, it's just mixing ingredients and baking it.
At 1B wrote,
Even more so in the US. I don't think we use as many chemicals in the EU, especially in Germany. Or at least, next to it, we also have our traditional bread. Then again, that is probably also not as nutrient as it was long ago.
Atimo 971 wrote,
What are the odds that instead of none of those health problems in medieval times, they instead had those problems, but didn't know how to diagnose any of it nor kept records for us to tell you via YouTube?
At the Keps wrote,
This is extremely interesting and a very good video. However, it is such a shame that studies mentioned in the video is not linked in the bio. Please provide the studies in future videos so further reading for viewers is easier.
Elugue wrote,
The saddest part about this video is how it mixes some real claims with completely false claims, probably because of the AI-generated script =/well done on your content farm though.
A Flintstone C3S wrote,
The French had millet bread. Millet is a much better grain than wheat, except it could kill you if it went moldy. Millet was the #1 grain in Africa until Monsanto went into Africa.
At Richard Rose 7382 wrote,
Much of this covered in the Wheat Belly book. Wheat is normally self-pollinated, but in the 60s an attempt was made to make wheat heartier by forcibly injecting wheat genetic material. Once wheat stalks were 4 high, now most wheat stands knee high. I guess theoretically more of the plant's energy goes into producing wheat seeds and less into the stalks. But some of the genetic material that was incorporated into the modern wheat was from plants that are not digestible by humans. Makes sense that it might cause some adverse reactions in some people.
A Godrock 369 wrote,
I've been called a conspiracy theorist because I've tried to get people to understand the ruling class has wanted to unalive us for millennia. There is proof. Look at the now destroyed Georgia Guidestones. The Georgia Guidestones was a carved-in-stone manifesto for the world where a tiny ruling class imposes total control over humanity's numbers, freedoms, and reproduction under a centralized global authority, aka one world government. The very first commandment maintained humanity under 500 million. This is an evil agenda to lower the population from a modern-day population of 8 in T3 billion to 1/2 billion. We have all seen ruling class elites who openly declare world depopulation. They have been using food and drugs against us to keep their pocket full of gold. Look at the FDA and Big Pharma. They don't want us healthy. It's not good for their bank accounts when we don't need their medications. Food has always been a way they can control us, keep us sick, keep us taking their medications. Thanks for your awesome video. More people need to wake up and smell healthy bread cooking the ovens of the working class.
At Mr. Zheng 2402 wrote,
What was that third picture at 20? I wonder if they eat bread. Not that I don't think they consume wheat derivative S noodles are a thing, but I am unsure if they would qualify as bread.
At McCantle 0 up wrote,
No, there is nothing wrong with modern bread. The rye bread I buy here in Finland is made the same way it was made in the Middle Ages. I think it has 3 ingredients: water, salt, whole grain rye flour. No yeast is used.
At Rockdwayne 1710 wrote,
Why do I get the feeling that this particular problem mostly affects Americans? I eat bread right now that I bought yesterday. It has 5 ingredients: flour, water, yeast, salt, sugar, and its shelf life is about 4 to 5 days as it has no preservatives in it.
At Daname 1491 wrote,
This isn't a worldwide problem, though. The bread in Europe is fantastic and can be bought pretty much everywhere. Sure, it gets harder on the outside after a day, and after a few more starts to mold, but I'll take it every time before I eat that processed garbage that is called bread in some countries. It's the food that I miss the most when I'm on a business trip to Asia and the States.
At Skura Pandaburns 3489 wrote,
Here in Central Europe, we still buy bread that goes stale after a day, even from large industrial bakeries. I pity the poor sobs in England and USA with their disgusting bread substitute.
Kapastupas wrote,
Flour bleaching is forbidden in most, if not all, of Europe. Putting additives in bread is also forbidden. In Poland, where I live, bread by law must be composed of 4 fundamental ingredients: flour, water, salt, sourdough. There are also varieties with buttermilk, onions, etc., but no chemicals mentioned in the video. The old wheat variety bread and buns are available in many bakeries and in many supermarkets. Also, spraying grain fields with glyphosate is forbidden. This sounds to me like a crazy stunt only people from USA could come up with.
At Craig Timmis 2056 wrote,
No coincidence that the major shareholders in the industrialized agro-foods also are same major shareholders in the pharmaceutical industry. A symbiotic relationship that does little to keep you healthy and fit. Preventable disease and research to back it up is well known, but rarely brought to the public consciousness. Literally a criminal cartel that contributes to the modern health crisis, then peddles its treatments. The only remedy is to get informed and carefully consider what you eat. Stay well away from ultra-processed foods.
A Saint Sarcasm wrote,
Pretty sure, if I remember right, that the poor and general people were filling the bread with sawdust and various stuff to use less bread per bread. Which is why the desire for stuff that we can see is pure wasn't filled with random stuff came about. Various factors such as plague and war.
At Gige Herzi 64 wrote,
Medieval wheat never saw any chemical. This is where you recognize that this channel is a propaganda, maybe some sort of cult channel. BTW. It's also ugly to constantly hear AI-generated sentence structures.
At Chris Wood Services wrote,
Bread was a daily food. You'd get it and eat it same day, or put it into something if it was a day old. You could also soak the bread to give it a bit more life the second day.
At Bingo Hall 1333 wrote,
Not straight after, but 4/5 hours later I feel hungry again, and might have a bit of everything you said. I have learned to fill up on water first, a couple of mugs of water, then a salad before a sandwich or 2 or rolls. I'm going to have 2 eggs on what my father called angels on horseback. 2 pieces bread toasted. 2 eggs separated, 2 handfuls of cheese in. Mixed in the cheese with egg whites, add a little pepper and salt together, placed under a grill until it just starts to color on the 2 toast slices. Keep checking it can turn black if not watched. Then take them out. It only takes minutes. Make a space or well in the middle into these toasts with cheese and whites. Pop the egg yolks in center and grill for a few minutes more. Or how you like your egg yolks, runny or a little firmer yolks. And Bob's your teapot, you might call the difference somewhere else or by different name. Love, Mom.
At Moose Moose 1 wrote,
This is all due to capitalism. The necessity of the capitalist to maintain ever-growing profit margins necessitates ever higher yields and chemical substitutions to produce more and more variety of consumer goods at the expense of nutrition and health. It was never about feeding humanity. And when we get sick from these agro, industrial, and chemical capitalists, the pharmaceutical capitalists take care to maintain our sickness for their own profit as well. Capitalism is literally killing us and making us sick, all while profiting from both. It is a cancer of an economic system that we must destroy as soon as possible. We lived our entire 40,000-plus year history without capitalism. It's only around 350 years old. We can survive without it today. Another world is possible by erasing the concept of private capital and property ownership that allows these capitalists to continue to poison us. We need to think beyond owning businesses and property towards a new future where we work for the common good of all under socialism. Even its flaws are superior to the suffering we feel today under capitalism.
At Oliver Muff 9799 wrote,
Just don't live in a shitty country then. You have no idea what people in normal countries can buy in a bakery or even a supermarket. If I want sourdough emmer bread, no problem.
Thales30 wrote,
Big bread producers should look to Norway for the right way of producing bread. Most bread have a substantial percent of whole grain, and many with seeds, rye, oat, and spelt as well.
Zoom GT3PN wrote,
I have felt bloated, slow, and generally not very well when I used to eat modern bread. I have stopped eating it on any regular basis for several years now, and occasionally have some very simple bread. But 90% of the time, I do not eat it at all. Modern bread is disgusting.
Atlito4706 wrote,
For a long time, I have been feeling sick after a meal, and I couldn't turn aside. I started to observe what types of food made me sick, and after facturas ampie, I found out that it was actually bread. And this video confirms something that I intuitively found out myself.
SirVirtuo6767 wrote,
Well, answering the question from 2 minutes in. I am gluten sensitive and get bloating, inflammation, and brain fog whenever I consume anything with American wheat/barley/rye. I thankfully do not suffer badly enough that I can prevent the symptoms by taking an enzyme pill whenever I consume the new gluten proteins. It basically costs me about an extra $40 a month just to eat a normal diet.
At High Friction Corn Syrup wrote,
I tried keeping my own sourdough enzymes, but my brain just didn't remember that it existed. It's not like a cat that gets my attention many times a day. I would almost never remember to feed the sourdough.
Ascoric Projectsand wrote,
People are now taking eugenic depopulation injections, which poison them, all along with the poisons put into everything available to buy being passed off as food. We are sick today because we are poisoned and toxic, while those who poisoned us deny everything.
At Randall, Chamberlain wrote,
A thorough research shows this video is highly biased and presents a simplistic view of a topic that is rather complex. You removed all nuance that may allow an intelligent discourse. Hyperbole, strawman fallacies, and dumbed-down generalizations renders this video as nothing more than sensationalism. What a shame, as this topic does have some things that ring true, but this video only promotes misinformation.
At Honor Baser wrote,
Cossack stone milling is the best method. The wheat simply enters the stones, and almost 95% of it is ground into flour immediately. That's it. It also grinds the oily part of the wheat, which enriches the flour. In contrast, modern systems remove this oil to extend shelf life.
At the Mr. Clutchy wrote,
I've had to cut our dairy recently, but I've still had issues with my stomach. They told me it IBS from chemo. But I stopped chemo years ago. I'm going to cut out bread and start making my own. Thank you for this.
At Abram32 wrote,
It's 3 a.m. I can't sleep. And now I suddenly want to leverage my bachelor's degree in botany for a bank loan to start an ancient legendary bread company. I don't know whether to thank you or cuss you out.
At Michael Ryan 5973 wrote,
Always thought that being allergic to gluten was weird. Turns out because it's genetically modified dog shit. Really, my immune system is just saying stop eating poison. Not really genetic defect at all when you think about it.
At GMPO Floyd wrote,
I prefer my bread without sand. Thank you. And in the south of Europe, we still have pretty good bread and probably better than the one we used to have.
At Merfluffy Hedgehog wrote,
I am really happy that bread culture is still alive in Central Europe. Most of the ingredients mentioned in this video are outright banned here because of their detrimental health effects. Yes, my bread does not keep for weeks. I have to eat it in 1 to 3 days or put it in the freezer for a later date. But on the plus side, my bread does not solely poison me either, and I can get real sourdough bread at every bakery.
At Rosical wrote,
Chile has a very good culture around good bread that is baked from corner stores every day for breakfast, lunch and tea time, and only buying supermarket bread for quick snacks instead of meals. Some families don't even buy white bread altogether.
At Atheist Batman wrote,
I have 2 loaves of Wonder Bread I didn't finish and hung on to, going on 2 months over expiration date and still no molds. The bread has gotten stale, but barely soured. Even a few years ago, the same bread grew mold soon near the expiration date, but now it doesn't at all.
At BugGenerat0R wrote,
According to the video, the ancient wheat was better because it had lower gluten/gliadin/phytic acid. So we agree that those are bad. Why not just avoid bread altogether? There's plenty of foods without any of those.
At JasperVlogged3843 wrote,
35 come to Europe, and especially Germany, and eat real bread, not that American fake stuff masquerading as bread, and you will change your opinion real fast. Real bread doesn't spike your blood sugar or makes you sick. It's still extremely common in Europe.
At Sodium Syndicate wrote,
Sorry, but people don't want old school healthy food. You just have to make this at home for yourself. Just teach us how to make proper bread at home with and without ovens.
At Jan Hansen 554 wrote,
This video is made for USA only. Rest of the world have proper bread. US bread is not allowed in Europe due to harmful chemicals. Sugar in so-called bread in USA makes it classified as cake in Europe.
At Colin Lambert 882 wrote,
1022 A medieval peasant eating 2 pounds of this bread. An idealized picture of the poor being able to afford white bread is just so misleading. The most popular bread was maslin, a mixture of rye and wheat, but many people couldn't afford bread made of wheat at all. Oats, barley, and rye were less nutritious and or less digestible, but more affordable for the medieval peasant. He doesn't mention the famines, such as 1315-17, when it was so wet that harvest failed 2 years in a row and the cost of wheat rose 8 times. 1 in 20 people died from starvation, and the rest suffered from severe calorie and protein deficiencies and a lack of essential micronutrients. Then there was the risk of mold in wheat, barley, and rye leading to ergot poisoning and death. While sourdough was one method, he doesn't mention barm from beer making, as small beer was a much safer drink than well water, and there were small breweries everywhere. Flour wasn't pure. The grind would retain some husks, and weed seeds and millstones released tiny grit and stone fragments, wearing out teeth. People are free to choose today to make their own, to use old wheat varieties, and to go to the local baker, who may or may not use old bakery methods, but if they do, the bread will be very expensive.
At Marcus Freund 6961 wrote,
Sick and tired with the AI slop kitties retching their copy pasta under every video. Using AI in creating a vid doesn't automatically lower its educational or entertainment value. So the stock footage isn't perfect. Big fucking deal. Listen to the information provided. That's a lot more beneficial than wagging your mouths like you know anything. Even better, start making your own vids. Seeing how much more qualified all of you are for everything, you'll knock all the channels creating AI vids out of the water in no time.
At YouTube 3869 wrote,
I started the Bright Line eating diet, and my God, it's been life-changing.
The concept is simple if it's a fruit, veggie, or animal cheese, milk, and those products are fine because most of those are just 1 or 2 step process. It's good to eat. I got rid of all processed and artificial food and boom, my life instantly improved. I miss bread and tortillas, but I have to make it myself because what is on the shelf is just poison, and when I do make bread it tastes better and actually keeps me full.
At Profile 1565 wrote,
Oh, please. Even good bread is still junk. It was made for high-calorie, dense jobs like peasant work. Don't eat it. You aren't working like a peasant.
Jesselp wrote,
I was gifted a Panasonic bread maker last Christmas, and this has been a wonderful year of experimentation with making bread. I had gut problems with supermarket bread, but absolutely no issues with homemade bread, whether white or brown. My journey of learning will continue.
At Islamon La Solution 461 wrote,
When I go foreign country, I get sick by drinking milk, but I drink at least half-liter milk daily. I didn't know what's wrong with foreign country food.
At Rolex 4853 wrote,
Do you have an AI crawler stealing all those images and videos? The texts are also fully AI generated, just like the thumbnails and the narration. So this is just another AI slop channel that ruins YouTube, I guess.
At John Matson 7949 wrote,
To be honest, I've never felt any adverse effect from eating bread, despite eating lots and lots of it. Quite frankly, this is likely a problem largely limited to the UK and US, where shitty, cheap, industrial white bread is ubiquitous. In mainland Europe, particularly Northern Europe, bread production and consumption is very different. Where I live, the typical white loaf, which is so common in the UK, would not even be allowed on the shop shelves due to the copious amount of additives. Instead, whole grain and coarse bread types are the order of the day, and loaves stay on the shelves for a couple of days at most.
At I Carry Boats and the Logs wrote,
Admittedly, I'm not educated in this at all. I'm not ashamed to say so, as I'm actively doing something about it and studying to better myself. Is there anyone who can tell me why I don't feel sick eating bread? I eat wholemeal sourdough on occasion, maybe 3 times a week, usually eat overnight oats for breakfast.
At Harikaran Shalikari wrote,
Or corporate sector is consistent with sex and lows to meditation. You enjoy sex more at lows. Sattvic food accumulates sperms that give you life. Rajasic and tamasic food makes you release sperms N, when empty you rely on tablets. This is eclipsed at highs N seen feminine condition post-drugs. It's rooted to mids. At lows, male characteristics are restored.
At Harikaran Shalikari wrote,
Having lows midateis, corpore sector has tremendos potentia. Its corpore sector acts upper sector, Esti nido fraction over corporadis exertor gil turbau, ur paid for bliss at lows that data centric than network model of birth.
Is to benefit every human good cause opposite to.
Jarnmad wrote,
May I point out that if you have these ism and phobe in the medieval time, you die and therefore never contribute to the epidemic of gluten whatever.
At Harikaran Shalikari wrote,
It should have happened long time ago. You have health research. Also see flat bread are also healthy. Without fermentation is nice, something I heard. I love bread. Multigrain with least sugar is heaven. Also you have to digest them at Lowe's meditation. It's like beaver dams storing tons of water before discharge. Lower you meditate. Higher is digestion.
David Johnson, YG8QM wrote,
I am down to 1 slice a day and now investigating making my own. I know bread is just muck now. Looks like it, smells like it, and tastes like it, but it is a substitute for the real thing. Those who made bread in the 60s told me back then bread making was changing, and the stuff they're making now is rubbish compared with what made when serving their apprenticeship.
Joe Rocket 10R wrote,
Sadly, I developed celiac disease a few years ago. Personally, I think it's from multiple factors, i.e. 6 pints of blood transfusion over 3 days from surgery. The surgery process, which can push along the disease especially from hard knocks to the body. Eating far too much processed food like burgers and pizza and COVID, which for me causes catastrophic inflammation with lesions, and several months after started having problems and was diagnosed with celiac. 40-odd years of eating what I want to not was the most psychological damaging process I've had in my life. And to boot, nearly all the ads we see are for food I can't have.
Take Courage 92 wrote,
I mean, it was hard to get diabetes if you spent all day doing hard manual labor. Not really surprising, it was less common. As for type 1 diabetes, I assume back in the day those people would have died as children. We really shouldn't idolize the past so lazily.
Fumirock wrote,
All by design, Big Pharma needs sick people. They give donations to food companies and politicians to change laws and put rubbish in our food. And yet the sheep think we live in a democracy.
At The Rock 220 wrote,
This comment section is full of self-righteous morons. You know what countries don't have industrialized agriculture and modified foods? The ones that are known for their starving populations. Try baking this healthy bread when you're in an area where the crops are failing due to pests or weather.
At Ismaila 4795 wrote,
You believe that bread on past times was healthy. Problem is that you want old things moved to present time, but that doesn't work. If you want more real comparison, give worse bread to starving people, they will eat like best meal. Unhealthy isn't problem when there is death from starvation. People chew rocks to have saliva on their mouth so they could swallow that and full stomach just a little.
A Cherry Dragon 3120 wrote,
A human can function perfectly on soup and bread, if those are rich in nutrients, that is. Everything else is simply luxury, and most of the time, not even that good for you.
Barry Piper wrote,
What a load of garbage this video is. Bread is an OT, making us sick. Not even sick. Bread all types can be eaten as part of a balanced, healthy diet.
A Fat Sweet Lil Thing 2 wrote,
The intro statements are clickbaity and not scientific. Inflammation being caused in the gut/intestine. Where? How much? How long? Causation. Causing blood sugar spikes. Again, by how much comparatively? Bread is mostly carbs, and any intake in carbs can cause a spike. This is just fear-mongering.
Wrote,
Thank you for making this video. It's nice to know there are alternatives to our ultra-processed bread sold in supermarkets. I agree that the obesity epidemic is down to the food we eat, but the responsibility doesn't fall solely on bread. In his book Ultra-Processed People, Dr. Chris Van Tulleken talks about how widespread is the problem with the food quality. He mentioned that the bread is at fault too, but he didn't go into the details on alternatives to the modern bread, for which I thank you.
Abstube888 wrote,
For bread, you don't have to roleplay being a medieval peasant. Just mix flour, yeast, salt, and water, and you're good to go. But you're right, most breads in the shop are not bread at all. I never buy bread, only flour.
At Rob Warren 5744 wrote,
Corn has been selectively improved over the last 2 millennia. Just look at the size of preserved corn cobs of that era. So improved yields are not a modern process. Medical advances have also immensely improved diagnosis of human conditions, so populations have increased, putting pressure on farmers to increase yields. In the past, corn was ground on stones, so it was contaminated with stone dust from the grinding process. The poorer population was fed this bread. In the process of cooking, these contaminants sank to the base of the loaves. Therefore, only the top half was served to the lords of the manor. Hence the term upper crust. What I'm saying is that your argument is not so clear-cut when you understand history a bit better. Present the facts. I'm also not saying that modern bread is healthy and safe to eat. I don't eat it as it upsets my stomach, which it did not back in the 50s. First-hand experience.
Cardinal Alinta wrote,
While there definitely is a grain of truth here, the AI voiced hype dude really believes that one. If there is no official data, it wasn't a thing. Medieval data about microbiomes and disease was obviously well documented and as a concept, well understood. Sarcasm if somebody is not catching on. Two European medieval peasants didn't have access to barley, oats, or grains in general other than wheat. What a hoot! Barley in particular was widespread and popular. 3. The only bread you can buy from the regular shop is pure white cake bread. There is variation from area to area, but it's not quite that severe. Also, while it's true that the emphasis put on making farming super efficient really kicked in full volume around the world wars, the grain alteration and yearn for the whitest of breads started much earlier. Victorians, for example, were notorious for glorifying the purity of unnaturally white bread and mixing in all manner of additives to achieve the whitest of white loaf for their dinner tables.
At A64738 wrote,
The authorities is poisoning us on purpose to make us sick so the medical mafia can make more money. And lately, they even started killing us to reduce the population.
At Magic Y8 wrote,
Bread is important because it provides calories that prevent the need to burn all your fat and protein intake for calories. Its importance ends there. Any video, government, or food pyramid that suggests to you that bread is nourishing is just trying to convince you to stop competing with them over the actually nourishing food, mostly meat, but also dairy, fruit, veggies, and nuts.
At My Silver Springs wrote,
Not only is it a problem with the flour, but it's with the synthetic vitamins they put into all our bread and food products. Many people, perhaps as high as 40% of the population, have a MTHFR gene mutation, which means they have issues with converting B vitamins for use throughout the body. It's especially problematic with synthetic B vitamins. If you think you have trouble with it, check with a doctor because they can recommend different types of vitamins to use. And try to avoid products that include synthetic B vitamins.
At Black Chalice wrote,
Don't forget we used to eat rock particles as well when the grain was ground with the millstones, and they ranged from several types of rocks. However, the new grains they use in today's bread is vile.
And Modarkvids wrote,
Before you buy bread, look up what the GI index is. Glycemic load equals GIX carbs G/100. That's your daily insulin load from something like bread, rye, sourdough, oat bread, barley bread, 100% whole grain Etsy all have GI indexes potentially around half of normal white bread to even lower.
At J. Perez 3431 wrote,
I have been allergic to synthetic wheat since 14, and it has ruined my life. 38 now, and still trying to avoid it, but it's nearly impossible because they are putting it in everything.
Goblin's Eyes wrote,
This content is highly misleading, and I am flagging it as health misinformation that should be removed. It makes unsupported historical claims about no diabetes or autoimmune disease in the past, falsely blames modern wheat breeding for rising celiac and metabolic disease, overstates risks from additives and glyphosate, and ignores strong evidence that whole grain and traditionally fermented breads can be beneficial. It cherry-picks and misrepresents small studies, treats correlation as causation, and repeatedly presents speculation and rhetoric modern bread is poison as established scientific fact.
At Evelina 1 wrote,
Hi. It would be so nice to send this video for my friends. I would appreciate some sources in the caption. Everything makes sense, and I have sometimes even worked as a baker in a factory, so I know how toxic bread is. So brilliant job from you. Very needed and appreciated. Keep up the good work.
At Artem NL5RW wrote,
I want to point out on the elephant in the room. People don't move. Office worker wouldn't have all named health problems if he moved as much as a peasant on a farm.
Collard and Bowser wrote,
Hard red wheat in the United States and all the extra crap they put in bread in the US does make me sick. I wish we could get flour made with soft white wheat like in Europe or semolina from Italy.
At Here Sometimes Over There Too wrote,
I do not buy bread anymore from anywhere. I make my own with only organic. GMO, free whole wheat. I buy direct from the miller, flour, and make it every third day as it will go bad if left longer. My wife only eats store-bought bread, and it's scary to see some of it has a best use by date of up to 2 to 3 weeks and ingredients. I need to Google to see what they are, while mine only has flour, water, yeast, and a little extra virgin olive oil. Thanks for the video.
At Aaron Lambert 9297 wrote,
Most of my clients who couldn't eat pizza, pasta, bread, etc. without having moderate to severe digestive/joint issues had no problem eating those foods when traveling through Europe.
At Surjit Satam 13 wrote,
90% of the groceries didn't exist 100 years ago. 90% of the diseases didn't exist also. So groceries nowadays are not there to make you healthy, it's about profit. Supermarkets are industrial food machines, so support your local farmers. And get back your health. Awesome video BTW.
IXO wrote,
Yeah, but you gotta consider 7 to 10 people are hypochonders or just straight up bit. Ease today, if you ask someone to do the same labor, ask the old school people, they would cry axed.
At Genescura 2381 wrote,
Bread doesn't cause me problems. I love bread. I eat regular store-bought sliced bread on a regular basis. It's fine. I really hate seeing people demonizing cheap food that's fine for most people. The sad thing is that so many people fall for this BS. The fact that a chemical has industrial applications doesn't mean it's harmful. Water is used in nuclear power plants. Is water now dangerous? You mention a study early in the video, but conveniently done give us the name of the study or what journal it was published in. A single study means sweet F all. Is there a meta-analysis published in a reputable peer-reviewed journal that backs up your claims? So no, modern bread doesn't make me or most people sick. The problem is people consuming too much sugar and saturated fat, as well as too many calories. Sure, whole grain bread is better, but regular bead is fine. Bread is a big part of Judaism. So me and every other observant Jew eat plenty of it. We seem to be doing just fine.
Apolloharisbica 4851 wrote.
And cats were worshipped as gods because they caught the mice that sneaked and ate the grain. Wonder Bread never built strong bodies 12 ways the way we were taught as kids in the 1970s.
And Joseph Dively wrote.
They are it because it was cheap. We can't eat it because it's too expensive to afford. I mean, at $20 po and T00 plus a loaf, it might as well be gold because no one I know can afford it.
Adefm 374 wrote.
So just to push back, at the time bread was still good for you people had life expectancy in their 30s and women had many, many children because of how many wouldn't live to adulthood. The idea that we are sicker now than before is just wrong. Yes, diabetes and gluten intolerance are a thing caused by our current bread, but people rarely starve in societies where that's an issue and people are thriving overall much more. And they were hardworking men who built cathedrals. They were mostly malnourished peasants who were on average a foot shorter than modern men because of it, and maybe 1 in a million did anything that grande. The vast majority were miserable and lived in complete poverty beyond anything we experience in the West today.
At RossMC 222 wrote.
This is what I call the right message, but very wrong delivery. Too bad I had to get this info delivered by a clanker even though I agree.
At Sergangamerbaten 6thoth 12 wrote.
I do agree with most of this, but there is a small mistake. The 3-hour process of the modern manufacturing method of bread can become so fast because of the modern yeast we use. In the past, they had to use natural yeast from fermenting flour and water together, just like you said about sourdough starter, so it took a lot of time. While current mass-produced breads use yeast starters that can ferment bread faster, like within 30 minutes to 1 hour rest. That's why modern bread rises so much faster. Because their yeast is just more intense, also a reason why I hate the taste of modern manufactured bread if I don't add anything else like jam or chocolate spread. But also the reason why it's not as sour as sourdough. Because they are a single species of yeast bread for fast reactions, while sourdough is a mix of yeast species that causes different tastes. Also, the reason why it's very popular mass-produced breads that it's way faster and less maintenance on taking care of the sourdough starter, which has to be taken care of at least 2 to 3 times a week. And you cannot make as much as yeast starter with consistent taste. Some sourdough starters can go bad or have a different type of yeast in them that affects the taste. So, from a manufacturing perspective, it's not good to have a consistent taste. Also, another small problem, when earlier you kinda blamed modern wheat a little bit, and then debunked it later when you said research said the problem is the manufacturing processes, not the wheat. You should make the video more consistent with the points that you want to deliver. Otherwise, it's a pretty good video.
The Helen F3R wrote.
When the grain was harvested, it used to be left in field for a while, and it had more vitamins in it. Not exactly fermenting, but going brown. Folic acid B, vitamin zinc.
At Navia 1 wrote.
If I were to eat any bread, I only use durum wheat and never white flour. The effect on the body is extremely different. While durum wheat isn't as good as ancient wheat, it's still far superior to white flour. It's about 4 times as expensive to flour, but worth it.
At Brillin 8808 wrote.
I feel so defeated and want to cry. I knew it was bad, but it just keeps getting worse. I've never had a chance. I've been poisoned since I was in the womb with all this fake processed crap they call food. Thank you for this great video.
John Wask wrote,
Not only bread, which I find disgusting today, every grocery product today is over-engineered and full of ingredients not intended for human consumption, even those all natural products. Food coloring was the first nightmare to befall us. Flavor enhancers and stabilizers were the next detriments to our food supply. People laugh when I say I want to plow my front lawn and plant wheat and corn and make my own food. I really do. I'd rather be a free person to live off the land on my homestead. However, high taxes force one into the life of a factory worker to make ends meet, and that includes buying those lousy loaves of bread from a supermarket. Income taxes were created as a temporary effort to pay for a war. That war has been paid for over 100 years. Why are we still paying them? Property taxes are a joke that no one has gotten the punchline to yet. I have no children and am in my 60s. Why am I paying school taxes? Great video, though.
Agastaf Wolf Munmini 3877 wrote,
I started baking my own bread years ago and never looked back. Unfortunately, I don't mill my own flour, but my go-to recipe is 4 pds of flour, 2 teaspoons of salt and yeast, then slowly adding 2 cups of water as you mix together. Throw it in the fridge for a day to ferment, then leave it out for 2 hours to rise at room temperature. I love adding garlic salt, Parmesan shredded cheese, rosemary leaves, and olive oil on top. Bake for 25 minutes at 425 F. Oddly, I think it tastes better at room temperature, so take it out and let cool.
At Sahayu 6834 wrote,
Mixing truth with oversimplification and misinformation. E.g., its true modern grocery store breads are filled with preservative and produced with instant beer yeast. But then claiming bread is pre-digested during fermentation process and thus healthier is a bit too far. In short, biased and misleading.